You are Locked On Hawks Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Hawks Postcast, your home for the best Atlanta Hawks talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me is Crush Sports Talk co-host and my basketball BFF, Maceo Hurd, is in the building. Today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. And of course, a Locked On Hawks Postcast is also part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Hawks were on the second game of a back-to-back tonight, and the injury bug bit them tonight. We'll discuss the long-term impact. And is there a path for 11 to get to San Fran? We'll discuss, but first, let's talk takes on how the Hawks were, as Maceo put it, out of balance in the 122-119 loss to the Toronto Raptors tonight. As he shakes his head.
Sad, tough loss for the home team. This team give us so many good moments. And then tonight, when you kind of feel like, okay, we should be good on this end of the back-to-back, come up short.
Yeah.
Don't like that.
Yeah. And for you, you talked about the imbalance that you saw in the Hawks play. Tell me a little bit more about that from your perspective, because like you said, it was a disappointing loss on so many levels. You mentioned a couple of them, but I want to talk about your imbalance piece first.
So we've kind of been spoiled because our bench has been so good for us when we win. But in games like tonight, like DeAndre Hunter, it's for some reason we've got we've been giving him 6 man of the year accolades, and just we know when he comes in, we can almost write in 14, 16.
Exactly.
And you look at his stat line, and now you these are the nights that we need him to be the guy that we've kind of got accustomed to being for us coming off the bench. So that was very outside of Bogey. Welcome back, Bogey. Thank you, Bogey. But again, we need that consistency from our bench, because that really has helped this team when we've had those streaks in our highest of highs. It's our bench, and that's that imbalance I'm talking about.
Yeah. We
know what our five are going to do, but that bench, and you can see it in Coach Quinn tonight. It was just come on, guys.
Yeah.
I need more.
And then the thing too is, I love what you said about the flashes that we see in particular from DeAndre Hunter that had us all talking about him being a legitimate 6-man candidate. And not to say that he's not still that,
right?
But if we're being honest, if we look at the last, say, 3 to 5 games, he's kind of looked like, for the most part, the guy who we used to shake our heads and say, wow, still a starter? Still a starter. Okay, still a starter. You still here, right? Exactly. Are you still here? Yeah. So that's how I felt like it was tonight, where he had a moment, maybe 2 moments, but when you only give 8 points, a couple rebounds, a couple assists, like you said, that's just not gonna cut it, because you didn't have any. You didn't have, for example, Onyeka Okongwu as a part of the second unit tonight to give you, your words, balance. So somebody had to pick up the slack for him. Now, thankfully, like you said, Bogey's kind of sort of back, so he picked up some of it, but you can't expect him to pick it up when you don't have a short bench. Like, you had a pretty full roster and a pretty full rotation tonight, so everybody had a chance. And DeAndre, it seems like when DeAndre hits that 3, or when DeAndre gets that and one, it just
going. It gets everybody. And it's funny you say that, Tanisha, because I always kind of put him and Garrison together.
Yes.
It's like they feed off each other. Okay, he hit one. Now it's my turn. He makes the play on defense. Let me go do that too.
Yeah.
And again, the imbalance I was talking about, it didn't click tonight, and ultimately, that's why we lost to the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah, that's a hard one. When you look at them before tonight having only won 11 games, you're thinking to yourself, that's a great bounce back from what we saw the Hawks do against the Detroit Pistons last night. And granted, the Pistons, even when they were bad, they were always pesky against the Hawks, but the Hawks would always battle back and somehow figure out how to win. Couldn't do that last night. Different sort of Pistons team. But towards the end of that game, because this was a game that 20 plus points, the Pistons were leading by for the most part. And you take your foot off the gas at the end, but you still only lost by 10 points. That should have given you something to build on. But I agree with you. The other imbalance piece was the up and down, like which Hawks team is going to show up. Is it going to be the one in the first quarter that only scored 25, or is it going to be the one in the second quarter that scored 34?
Exactly.
So up and down, that was a little bit difficult as well. But I guess the one maybe pseudo silver lining, and like I said, it's the pseudo silver lining, because my take was, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Bogey.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, because when Bogey comes back, the 3-point comes with him.
Yeah,
and you need him, because if Gary Bird's not having a Gary Bird type of night, at least there's somebody else who can get in there and hit some threes for you. And when you look at the fact that you're looking at an over, you're looking at one night where, to your point, Bogey and Garrison 1 for 16. That's the kind of thing that you can't quite have happening. So I like the fact that Bogdan Bogdanovic was looking like himself on a night where the Hawks needed him to 23 points, but more importantly, 3 of 5 from 3. That's really the big stat for me, because despite this loss, that's one of the places where I've said, okay, and you and I are going to talk about this a little bit in the second segment, but in addition to what you need to be thinking about as the trade deadline looms, one of the things is scoring. Like, who's going to be that guy who just gets out to the perimeter and shoots? You pull him off the bench, he can be cold, he'll get right in and give you a 3 and give you some good offense. So at least you got an opportunity to see that from Bogey, and he kind of gave the Hawks a little bit of a jump start with them finishing 35% from 3. May not seem like a big deal, but if you see what they did against the Detroit Pistons in that department, and you see what they've been doing on and off for a little while now, to me, that was one of the silver linings, that the 3-point was kind of sort of back, because Bogey's kind of sort of back.
Yeah, we actually agree on something.
I told you guys he was my BFF, my basketball.
You better know it. My next door neighbor at the games. We somehow they sit us next to each other. I think
every time. I'm trying to understand that. I'm really trying to understand that. But wait a minute. I want to go back to something you said as well, because even with the 3-point performance improving tonight, even with Bogdan Bogdanovic leading the way in that department, you made a great point as we were getting ready for the show. And you said, hey, in addition to the imbalance, the other thing that you can't see are turnovers. And granted, you might say 15, not a lot, because Toronto turned it over 20 times.
Right.
But it's the fact that you conceded like 32 points off the turnovers. That's wherein lies the problem. So I think that's the other thing you were talking about, just in terms of the imbalance. Right. Because if the Hawks are going to have 5 less turnovers than the opponent, why is that number for conceded points why is there such a gap there?
And think about it, Tenitra. It's the way we turn over the ball.
Yes.
Because it almost, you scratch your head like, are we watching the NBA? Like, that's church league. That's a church league turnover. So that, and again, I always like looking at coach body language. And it told a story tonight. A guy makes, he's like, now how did that happen?
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things, again, against a team, crazy stat. My mind go crazy. This was like that second road win of the season. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough. It's tough night. See, that's tough.
It is. It really is, because it goes back to, and I hate this question, but it does go back to this question that we pose all the time, which is, oh man, I hate to say that the Hawks do it, because they weren't doing it as much at the beginning of the season. But sometimes when you see them lose to the Raptors, when you just saw them beat the Celtics, you're like, oh man, are we going back to playing to the level of our competition again? Please don't do it. And that's what it felt like tonight, quite honestly. And that is frustrating, because we cannot get in that back and forth and again, I know it's very early in the season, but when you're having a conversation about the Hawks being in 4th place in the East, all that tells you is that they have the ability to fight their way out of the play-in. So we can't have nights like this, because nights like this, they don't allow you to fight your way out of the play. And what they do is put you right back in a play-in situation like we've seen the last several years. But speaking of that, it maybe not is all about the imbalance. Maybe it's not all about the turnovers, and maybe it's not all about the fact that they did decently but not great on threes. It could be something that's bitten them in the butt a lot the last couple years. And Maceo and I are going to talk about what we really think is going to happen long term in the N1. This episode of our Locked On Hawks postcast is brought to you by Talkspace. So therapy is a game changer. It can help you manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively, but finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider and makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. And signing up is pretty simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours, and it's convenient because you can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans, and for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. So as a listener of this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA and enter promo code SPACE80. To match with the licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA. And again, enter that promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for this show as well. Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80.
Great job.
All right, Maceo, now you were frustrated earlier about the imbalance, about the turnovers, and about the moments where it just seemed like the Hawks were doing things that were, like you said, we're going to go church league, maybe almost little league. Like, what are we doing here? But if we're being fair and if we're being honest, you can't overlook the fact that Jalen Johnson went down tonight. Because remember when we were talking about this, probably like a week and a half ago, we were talking about the fact that Jalen was out. It seemed like very vague information about how he was doing, when he's coming back. And then all of a sudden, this past weekend, he pops up on the injury report as questionable. And then he ends up playing the game this weekend. So you're thinking, okay, maybe you're encouraged, but I don't know about you, Maceo. Maybe sometimes I'm a little bit of a scary Mary or whatever that saying is. But I was a little nervous, like, oh God, I hope they're not bringing Jalen Johnson back too soon, right? But that said, this time it was a different shoulder, right? So Jalen Johnson goes down with a shoulder injury, ends up with 3 points, just a rebound, an assist and a steal, obviously, because he went down so early.
Right.
But for me, that's scary because I've always said that I feel like Trae Young and Jalen Johnson are not the 1-2 punch, they're 1A and 1B. Because with Jalen in that front court, that completely expands and diversifies what the Hawks are able to do. And you notice it's a noticeable drop off when he's not there. So consider this. You got that injury. Then you got Clint Capella being out with right knee soreness tonight. You know what's coming, the trade deadline. So does that indicate to you that Landry Fields needs to focus on shoring up the front court as the trade deadline looms? Or with Kobe Buffkin also done for the season, is it still the backup point guard that's the priority?
Ooh. We need both, but if we're being honest, definitely the front court, because we don't really know what's going on with Jalen. They being kind of G14 classified with it, and we need him. Like, just imagine if we just put his season average into the game tonight, we win.
Yep.
So he is a very important piece to what we do, and he definitely needs to be healthy down the stretch if we're going to make a serious run in the playoffs. But we definitely going to need that pressure, because what we know about playoff basketball, got to hit the boards. You got to get those tough points in the paint, because teams are going to kind of stifle down your defense. So you're going to have to bang the ball down the side, and that's what Jalen does great for us. I mean, he gets a lot of stuff on the perimeter, but when he's inside, he makes a lot of magic happen. So we're going to need another big. We're going to need another body down there, because those points, as people try to cut Trey off, Trey's gonna have to be able to get that ball inside and know that we can get some consistent scoring in there. And again, you're not telling us what's going on with Jalen. Now it's both shoulders.
Yeah.
Come on, Landry.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. Now it's a serious dilemma because Jalen Johnson is versatility is what I think of when I come to him. You mentioned him going inside, and when he goes inside, he can go in with a layup, but most of the time he's going to be going in with authority. Let's just be real. He's got right. He brings thunder on the inside, but then he can step a little bit away from the basket and give it to you from 17 feet. And he can actually go to the perimeter and do two things that are so important: give you a three every now and again, but in actuality, give you more of that perimeter defense that this team is always sorely lacking. And you called out his stat line. He's a walking double-double. 19 points, 10 rebounds. That's what he's been averaging this season. He comes back, and even in that Pistons loss last night, you see 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 steals. So low-key, he's also become a solid ball handler as well. So those are some of the things that you're losing out on. And then you start going down the road, and as you start competing with some of these teams to kind of buy your way into maybe the top 6 so you can just get out of that play-in round altogether, that's the kind of guy that you're going to need, the one where they have to be aware. That opponent has to be aware at where's Jalen Johnson? Where's one? Let me see what one is doing. Offensively. Yeah. So when you don't have him, that's one less place that the opponent has to look for, because having him, I don't want to say one-dimensional Maceo, but not having him makes you a little bit more than multi-dimensional is what I would say. And then you look at Clint Capella and you think about the fact that, okay, right knee soreness just for tonight, but ultimately speaking, you didn't have him in the lineup. And granted, first time this season. So I'm actually impressed because Clint Capella actually got through this many games this season. What we're talking about, 44 games?
Right.
Okay. I'm impressed with him to get through more than half the season.
We almost at All-Star break. Good job.
Yeah. Like, when have we had that conversation about Clint Capella? So I need to give him his flowers for even you and I having this conversation 44 games into an 82-game season. But the fact of the matter is he is older. And so right knee soreness for him could keep him out of a few more games than maybe it would have a couple years ago. So insert and enter Onyeka Okongwu. It's kind of, I like Double O because I think Double O is that one guy who's very teachable. And that's why his game has been able to evolve. He gave the Hawks 15 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple steals, and a block. I think that was about as good as you could ask him to get. Not that he did a fantastic job on Jakob Poeltl. I don't know that anybody could have tonight until Poeltl kind of took himself out of the game, himself out with four fouls. But ultimately, how'd you think Double O did tonight?
Listen, I love Big O's energy.
Yeah.
It's something about when he's running the floor, when he's in the paint, when he makes a play. I mean, he brings a different kind of energy. And let's just go ahead and say it. He has young legs.
Yeah.
He has young legs. So a lot of the things a lot of energy plays from him. And you just said it. We've watched him evolve, and he's becoming a very good player for us. And he's going to be a key cog as we keep going down the stretch. We need that guy. I'm enjoying what he do. And now you get Clint healthy, or this allow Clint to, buy a little more time, because we're going to need Clint and his toughness down the stretch. So that 2-man team inside with those two guys, it's much needed. But man, shout out to Big O. I always love the way O plays when he's in there.
Same here. Yeah, same here. And listen, this is not an insult to Clint Capella, what I'm about to say. This is actually just a compliment to Onyeka Okongwu. But you're right. There were a couple times these last couple games where I was in person and I was killing myself laughing because Double O just went right to the corner and took that corner three like he was a point guard, like he was in the, and that was so impressive to me because that speaks of the confidence and that speaks of the evolution. Those are, that's one of the things that he brings to the table when he's kind of playing at your 5 or kind of between your 4 and your 5. I think the other pieces, and again, no affront to Clint Capella, but there are times when he makes you and I want to just pull our hair out, jump on the court and say, man, you can't hit the bunny. Like he kills me when he misses that bunny that like, I'm like, for real, man, that's a point blank range shot and you missed it. When double O goes in for that, I'm expecting an and one. That's kind of the subtle difference. And again, nothing against Clint, but that's something that double O brings to the table. And 7 of 8 from the free throw line in a close game like tonight. That's how you stay in the game. The fact that your bigs and your guys are going to the cup, they're going through the charity stripe and they're making something happen. So I liked what he did a whole heck of a lot tonight. But before we wrap up, definitely want to also talk about the Skyhawks. Of course, many of you guys know I'm the sideline reporter for the Skyhawks. So I love to see when these guys get College Park in the building. I love to see when these guys get that call up. We saw unbelievable play from Keaton Wallace and Daquan Plowden last week against the Bulls, and a really, really nice night from Dominic Barlow. And it's funny because we were down in College Park tonight going, all right, they got Dom again. Like what's going on? But at the time, we didn't know that Clint Capella wasn't going to play tonight. So ultimately, Dom Barlow gets in, gives the Hawks 11 points, 2 steals, 2 rebounds, and an assist in 17 minutes. So you like the fact that at least the farm system of the Hawks is still doing some good stuff.
You like to see these guys when they get the call up and see them perform on the stage, because it does 2 things. It lets you know that our front office, our scouting department, okay, they know what the talent is. And when these guys get the call, they come up the street, they jump on 85, and then once they get in the building, they understand what their job is. And I was thoroughly impressed. Like you just love to see it, because when guys are in the G League, some guys are probably gonna make just a career in the G League and never get the call. But when you bring Brother Barlow in, you're like, oh, okay, hey, make a note of in March, April. Yeah, he can help us out somewhere.
Exactly. That's what you're making a case for. You are making a case for you to get a 10-day or a 2-way or something.
Come on, two-way me, please.
Indeed. Now, as happy as Maceo is about what Dom Barlow was able to do and what Onyeka Okongwu was able to do tonight, there's one thing that happened on Thursday that my boy is not happy about, and we're going to talk about that in What's Next. This episode of our Locked On Hawks POSTCAST is brought to you by Game Time. So I love going to live events. It can be sports, music, theater, comedy, doesn't matter. One of my favorite memories was actually attending a concert last year. Shout out to the Beehive. The energy and excitement were absolutely unforgettable. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get those types of tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And recently I was looking for tickets to an upcoming game using the Game Time app. Yes, I go to games sometimes when I'm not working just to let my hair down. And with Game Time, you can find amazing deals and could even see the view from your seat before buying. And the super deal is particularly impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download that Game Time app today, because what time is it? It is game time.
Game time.
All right. Maceo, this is Thursday. This was the day that we knew we were going to get the announcement from the NBA about who the all-star starters were. Now, of course, for the West, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Steph Curry. I don't think that list was surprising, in part because if they go front court, back court, not necessarily 1 through 5 position-wise, but front court, back court, those guys were leading vote getters pretty much from day one. On the other side in the East, there was a little bit of a toss-up outside of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo, who got the most fan votes, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Karl Anthony Towns, but that final spot was up for grabs. And it was announced today that Jalen Brunson got that final spot. Now, granted, we still have an opportunity because reserves will be announced a week from today. So, Maceo, I know you were saying, hey, there's a case that Trae Young has made for himself this season. Do you feel like he's made enough of a case to be selected as a reserve?
Oh, definitely. I mean, he will get that call, but I mean, let's be honest. He deserves to be a starter. And if Jalen Brunson wasn't playing in the Mecca, terrible decision. Terrible decision. But I mean, let the fans vote for it. I mean, again, just go back and look at that West lineup. I mean,
yeah.
Steph
Curry.
Steph, KD, and LeBron.
Right, Steph, KD, and LeBron. I think this was an extended farewell tour from the Olympics. And you know, I love KD. He's my favorite player. I'm not hating, but I felt like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of an extended tour from what we saw in Paris earlier, or last summer rather. But okay, let me throw something at you, which is crazy. And fans, Atlanta fans, this might be your fault. This might hang on you, because the first returns, I thought Deshaun, who is a little bit under the weather, so guys, pray for our boy. Hopefully he'll be back in the saddle Saturday. But he was livid. He went off when LaMelo Ball was the top vote getter that first week out. He was like, what the heck are these people thinking? What are they doing? And nobody can still, by the way, explain how the heck he ended up in the one spot coming out of the gates. Now, granted, so it was down to him, down to Jalen Brunson and some others. And ultimately, they landed on Jalen Brunson. But yeah, to me, it was just weird on the East side because you just didn't know who it was going to be. And again, don't know about the LaMelo piece, but I do think you make a great point. And I take nothing away from Jalen Brunson. Love his game. That's my mentee's first cousin, so I'm going to just shout him out. I love you to death. But ultimately speaking, I think that Trae is kind of a victim of his locale and the fact that this is just not that franchise. Like, this is not that franchise at all. And even this, think about this too. New York has become Villanova East. So with New York being Villanova East, that brand still has a lot of good, positive memories for a lot of people. It resonates with them. So I think some of those things, and again, you're talking about, like you said, the Mecca, not just New York City, but all of the Northeast. A lot of that plays very well into Jalen Brunson's hands. And of course, some of what he did, the heroics that he did in the postseason last year that also kind of extended over into the start of this season. Just saying. Not saying it's right, just saying it's real.
But you're right about the city. And I do blame Atlanta because for a while, and I don't know why guys thought this. Me and Deshaun had this conversation once before.
Mm-hmm.
Trae is not going away. Trae belongs to us. Every other, last couple of years, trade him. Why? This guy's a bona fide star. We have a star in the city. This is a star city.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay, he don't dunk. Okay, I get it. Okay. Nobody scores at the point guard position like this guy. Look at his assist.
Yeah.
We got to stop it. We got to stop it. I don't like the city. I don't like us when we do this. Yeah. We have a star.
Yeah.
Let's act like it.
Yeah. I think you make a great point because, again, primarily in the beginning, at this stage of all-star voting, it's on you, the fans. That's where the votes come in. There are days when you get credit for what? Double votes, triple credit. Those are the days that Atlanta, where were you?
Yeah.
So you can't complain at the end of the day if you're not advocating for him the way you should by virtual votes. Now, granted, I'll tell you this, that first week, remember, he was in 6th place. And then he did move up to 5th place. And I think he just kind of leveled out in that 5th spot. But fans, if you want to see him there, you guys have to think about this for next year. And I think sometimes, and again, I'm not minimizing what the front office does, but sometimes, and again, this is not about Jalen Brunson, this is a general comment. Sometimes there are teams, there are franchises, there are fan bases that have no problem lobbying for their guy. And then ultimately, that guy starts to pick up steam.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about that for 2026, so that we don't have to have this conversation again where Maceo and I, or Deshaun and Maceo, are saying once again, so you think Trey's going to make that reserve? You think he's going to
got snubbed again?
Yeah. If you don't want that to happen, you got to approach it strategically. I mean, because it's strategy if you don't have that cachet.
Just throw the process away again. When I saw the West starters, I knew my guy didn't have a chance. I didn't even have to look at the East starters. When I saw who got named starters in the West, I was like,
yeah. I think the only one that made me smile, because I felt like, okay, we got a little bit of new guard there. And again, no disrespect whatsoever to the old guard at all. But I did get excited when I saw SGA on the list, because I was like,
SGA is him. As the youngest like say, he is him. Don't like his fashion. Too tough.
We'll shake it for you.
Certain days on Instagram, he a little too much SGA. But the dude, listen.
Yeah.
The dude,
he balls out.
28, 11, book it.
Yeah, all day.
Yeah.
All day. So I was excited to see him make it onto that list. And I thought this was interesting too, because I think when we all heard that Karl Anthony Towns was making that move from the Timberwolves to the Knicks, everybody wondered, how's that going to work? Like, is that going to do anything for the Knicks? How's it going to play out for Cat? Because we kind of saw him, well, let's just be honest, we saw him disappear in the postseason. So there were questions about what he would be able to do. But hey, obviously he's doing enough, because at the end of the day, we're talking about Karl Anthony Towns being a starter.
He's in New York. It's New York.
Right. That once again, put the asterisk on it and say, or check the box and say it's New York. Listen, it's been so fun hanging out with you, Maceo. Like I said, my basketball BFF stopping by today for Locked On Sports Atlanta, which of course is the #1 place to hang out after every game. Remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And of course, for more on the Hawks, check out Locked On Hawks with our guy, Brad Rowland. And you can check out Maceo and his co-host, Emmanuel Glaze, on the Sports Crush Network. Tell them where they can go. It's YouTube. It's Thursdays. They need to check it out.
Instagram. It's everywhere. Check us out. We always doing something.
They are. So we're going to, of course, see these guys later. And hopefully the next time we see Maceo or the next time we see E, it'll be us talking about the Hawks on a positive note. We'll see you next time.